So enjoy! This DHL Boeing 757 broke in half after sliding off the runway as it made an emergency landing in Costa Rica.
Uy, madre santa, man. Uy, man. Carepicha, man.
The plane suffered a failure of its hydraulic system, but luckily no one was injured. These two planes flying extremely close to each other to film a commercial. These two pilots attempted to swap planes mid-air by both of them jumping out and landing inside the other plane. One of the pilots managed to do it while the second plane entered a spin. The second plane crashed to the ground while the pilot landed safely using a parachute. The stunt was done by Red Bull, and luckily no one was injured, this plane almost hitting people while landing at St. Bartholomew's Airport. This pilot had to land on a busy highway after an engine failure. He managed to land in a curve and avoid the cars. This happened in North Carolina. This Airbus A319 had its engine cowl door rip off while taking off. The maintenance crew had only closed the cowling before takeoff, but didn't lock it. Luckily, no one was injured. This Airbus A310 was doing a low pass when it suddenly turned left and nearly struck its wing. Whoa! This happened at an air show in Portugal. This Boeing 747 destroying the terrain next to the runway while taking off. The runway recently had new sod put down next to it, and that was no match for the powerful 747. This pilot flying extremely close to the ground. This Boeing 777X doing an incredibly steep takeoff to demonstrate its abilities. Takeoffs like these are obviously not possible with passengers, but this was at the 2022 Farnborough Air Show. This Boeing 737 was landing in strong winds when the plane became unstable, almost causing a wing strike. This plane getting escorted by 3 F-18 fighter jets. This emitter had passed a test for the Swiss Army and received this special flight as a gift. This Boeing 737 deploying its reverse thrust too early before touching down. This Airbus A350 struggling to take off as it only has one functioning engine and half its usual power. This was a test at the Airbus factory simulating an engine failure. This Boeing 727 pilot couldn't wait to retract the landing gear. It looks like he needed to do it to gain altitude. This Airbus A350 doing a touch and go because of wind shear. This Boeing 737 hitting a light pole while pushing back. This helicopter struck the fence with its tail rotor. This trailer getting blown over by a Boeing 777 jet blast. This was done as a test and no one was injured. This Boeing 727's tail suddenly fell off. Luckily, no one was injured. This Airbus A380 aborting its landing attempt after touching down too late. This Airbus A380 had an unstable approach, causing it to go around. This Airbus A350 pilot making a super smooth landing in Amsterdam. This person was laying down at the end of a runway when a plane came in for landing. This Airbus A330 really showing off its engine power because of a wet runway. This pilot noticed an Airbus A320 flying overhead and it was really close. This Airbus A330 braking as hard as possible without reverse thrust, causing the brakes to start smoking. This was a test at the Airbus factory. This Boeing 747 struck a bird while taking off from Mumbai airport. This Cessna 182 in Colombia had to make an emergency landing with only one wheel. Luckily, no one was injured. This Blue Angels pilot flying extremely low, near a crowd. This Joss Gripen jet was flying really slow when another jet almost hit it. Luckily, they managed to barely avoid each other. This hot air balloon in Sweden had cleared to pass over an airport, but as they were passing over it, the wind stopped and they couldn't move. They maintained their altitude so the plane below them could still take off, and this is how it looked. This car has a jet engine, and it tried to race a plane at an air show. This plane helping out with a truck fire. This military Airbus A330 was forced to land after its left aerial refueling hose failed to retract. This plane struck its wing while landing at an airshow in Germany. This Cessna doing an extremely low pass. This Boeing 737 pilot really wanted to take the first exit after landing, using full brakes to make it. It still wasn't enough, so they decided to make a U-turn on the runway. This fighter jet being chased by another fighter jet. This is known as a dogfight, and you can see how the jet that's being chased is deploying flares to avoid getting shot by missiles. This was at an airshow in Sweden, so luckily they weren't actually fighting, and both of the jets were just weapons. This Airbus A300 braking as hard as possible, causing smoke to come out of the brakes. This Airbus A380 landing hard. This is how two helicopters would drop soldiers into an active battlefield. Luckily, the shooting is not real, and this was a practice. This Airbus A330 had to make an emergency landing after a problem with its left engine. You can see that only the right engine was used for reverse thrust. This Airbus A340 doing a very steep takeoff at an airshow in Portugal. This plane made an emergency landing on a highway, and now it has to take off. This plane suddenly nosedived, and the reason was to drop fire retardant. This plane was landing at an airport in Colombia when suddenly the pilots realized there wasn't enough runway left, so they had to go around. This helicopter creating a dust storm. This F-35 showing off its VTOL capabilities, which means it can stay still mid-air. This small plane is also capable of dropping fire retardant. This Airbus A321 was landing at an airport in Sweden when these cool vortices started to appear behind the wing.
We're landing. We're landing.
These two Delta planes landing at the exact same time at an airport in Atlanta.